Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be discussing my April 2025 State of the Collection. I currently have a two-piece collection and I keep my two pieces in this Mirage Luxury travel roll. On the left we have my Rolex Submariner date 16610 and on the right we have my San Martin SN0111GA, which is an homage to the Rolex Sea Dweller 4000. So what's changed since my previous State of the Collection review? Well, I sold my HGP Diver 200M and I sold my Trasker Commuter 38. Both of those pieces are champagne watches for lemonade money and I really like them, so why did I sell them? Well, my HGP Diver 200M used a Monin 844 case, which is very aesthetically pleasing, it's iconic and it's a design masterpiece, so I found it very aesthetically pleasing. But however, when wearing my HGP daily, I came to realisation. I'm now 48 years old. And when I was 30, I had an appreciation or a preference for large dive pieces. And when I was 30, for example, I owned an Omega Planetocean 45mm. And I really liked that piece at 30 years of age. But however, at 48, I would no longer fancy an Omega Planetocean 45mm because now the sweet spot for my preference is 39mm and 40mm, not 42 or 45 respectively. So the Monin 844 case used in the HGP was 42. Now visually it looks very aesthetically pleasing, but however it didn't fully satisfy comfort level and feel good factor because of wrist presence. Visually it looked large and also the feel good factor was diminished because of the heft of the piece. So I decided to sell the piece because it's just a watch that would have satisfied me fully at 30, but now at 48 it doesn't. Now this piece does because it's 40mm. Now above all else, there's something else I really like about it. This has a low profile double dome sapphire crystal, and it's something I actually prefer about this piece to my Submariner date 16610, which has a flat sapphire crystal with Cyclops magnifier. This really is like the piece I wish Rolex would make themselves. Now, it is a homage to the Sea Dweller 4000, so one could argue they have already made it. The Sea Dweller 4000 has now been discontinued and succeeded. But, however, there are some notable differences. Now, the main notable difference of this piece is it has a double dome sapphire crystal versus the flat sapphire crystal used in the Sea Dweller 4000. The Sea Dweller 4000 had a date complication, like this piece, also had a deep black glossy enamel dial and also had a ceramic bezel insert which was made from Cerachrome, and it had the 60-minute tick. So visually it looks similar, but the main difference is this has a double dome sapphire crystal rather like the Planetocean or the Seamaster. And that's something I really like about Omega pieces such as the Seamaster and the Planet Ocean, the low profile to the double dome sapphire crystals they use. I actually prefer a double dome sapphire crystal to flat sapphire crystals. I also prefer the double dome sapphire crystals with a low profile to boxed top hat sapphire crystals. Now, boxed top hat crystals are often used by low-tier Chinese brands because they give the aesthetic or the look of a vintage acrylic crystal or plexiglass or Hesselite crystal which were used in the 1960s and 1970s. So box top hat crystals look visually, aesthetically similar to vintage acrylic crystals, but of course they have the modern day enhancement of specification. They are harder and more scratch resistant. Sapphire crystals are harder and more scratch resistant than acrylic and mineral crystal respectively. So visually they have the look of a vintage acrylic crystal, but they are hard and scratch resistant, and that's why so many low tier Chinese brands use them. But I dislike them, and I've grown to dislike them over the years because box top hat crystals, although they look visually aesthetically pleasing, the problem is they often add 2mm of thickness to the head of the piece. Now, in my previous reviews, I often refer to the sweet spot for the thickness of a piece, regardless of case size, to be 30mm or below, because when a watch is 30mm or less, it will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts, and that makes it an ideal daily wear piece. When it has a box top hat crystal, often that adds 2mm of thickness. That makes the watch 13mm plus typically, and therefore it looks and feels top heavy rather than being balanced. Also, it makes it more difficult to slip underneath the shirt cuff. By using a flat sapphire crystal or low profile double dome sapphire crystal, as per this piece, it still is close to 13mm and it still will easily slip underneath the shirt cuff. Visually it doesn't look top heavy or too thick, and also it doesn't feel top heavy, it feels balanced. So that's what I like about this piece, the very low profile double dome sapphire crystal as per the Omega Seamaster or as per the Omega Planet Ocean respectively. So when I was 30, I really liked my 45mm Planet Ocean, not just because of the wrist present, but also because of the low profile to the double dome sapphire crystal. This does have a similar profile to the crystal, but it doesn't have the dominating wrist size, the wrist presence of the 45mm Planet Ocean. Also, it doesn't have the wrist presence of the HGP at 42mm with the Monin 844 case. 40 really does fits me better, and it just looks better. Now, the other thing I really like about this piece, and again, this is something I wish Rolex would do, both on the Sea Dweller and also the Submariner and Submariner Date respectively, female pivoted end links. The truth is, this fits my wrist better than my 16610 for the simple reason it uses female pivoted end links. You can see the benefit. The end link in the oyster style bracelet articulates fully. The end link in the bracelet can pull beneath the tips of the lugs, so we get this nice snug fit with a minimal gap beneath the tips of the lugs and the end link in the bracelet. Now, I'll just compare that with my 16610, and then you'll understand the difference when you visualize it. So, this is something that I think Rolex should do. On the Tudor Black Bay 58 and also the Tudor Black Bay Heritage, they use female pivoted end links, and they have 39mm and 41mm heads of the pieces, but in both cases the female pivoted end links on the Black Bay and the Black Bay 58, they allow the end link in the oyster style bracelet to articulate fully, and this is something that the Submariner, Submariner Date and Sea Dweller don't do because of the male end links. You can see the problem is they always have this slight gap. If you look between the tips of the lugs and also the end link in the oyster bracelet, you can see there's always this gap because the end link in the oyster bracelet cannot articulate due to the male end links. Now, visually it would look aesthetically pleasing if it had a line across the female pivoted end link as per this one, and it allowed the end link in the oyster style bracelet to articulate beneath the tips of the lugs. As you can see, this is beneficial. Comfort level and feel good factor are enhanced, but with this male end link you can see the comfort level and feel good factor are diminished because the end link in the oyster bracelet cannot articulate. If they had a line across it as per female pivoted end link to allow articulation, the fit would be better. So these are the elements that I like about this piece, and when I took it out of the watch box I immediately felt a connection to it, and I put it on the wrist for the first time and it's immediately fully satisfied the two key elements I referred to in my previous State of the Collection review: comfort level and feel good factor. They are the two key elements a watch must satisfy in order to be added to my personal collection. So this one does for a plethora of reasons. We've got the female pivoted end links, which I really like, double dome sapphire crystal, which is low profile, versus a box top hat crystal, which would be 2mm thicker, and I also like the minute ticks on the ceramic bezel insert. The glossy black enamel dial complements the glossy ceramic bezel insert, so aesthetically looks good, feels good, feel good factor is excellent, comfort level is excellent, feels balanced because it uses the perfection personified taper 20-16. Now, you'll know from my previous reviews I often refer to this 20-16 perfection personified taper. It is the industry standard for good reason. Regardless of whether a piece is 39 or 40mm, 20-16 is the perfect bracelet taper, both for oyster bracelets and also Jubilee bracelets respectively. You can see why. Visually it looks very aesthetically pleasing, comfort level is 10 out of 10, feel good factor is 10 out of 10. It cannot be beaten. 20-16 is perfection personified. So this piece is very aesthetically pleasing, comfort level is good, feel good factor is good, but however it's not the perfect watch because could be further enhanced with female pivoted end links, could be further enhanced in my opinion, and this is subjective, with a low profile double dome sapphire crystal versus a flat sapphire crystal with Cyclops magnifier. Yes, the Cyclops magnifier is beneficial because it does make it easy to read the date complication. It's 2.5 times magnification, so that's good. But however, I think a low profile double dome sapphire crystal would look very aesthetically pleasing as per the one on this piece, because it's almost flat, it's so low profile. Does have a slight bevel which projects above the ceramic bezel insert, so that does catch the light, and does have a similar projection. This also has a bevel which projects above the top edge of the aluminium bezel insert, and that catches the light, so does look good. But I really like this double dome sapphire crystal. It's the one single thing I absolutely love about this piece. It reminds me of my Omega Planet Ocean 45mm that had a similar double dome sapphire crystal. So San Martin deserve credit because this is a fantastic watch. It's a champagne watch for lemonade money. This really is, as I referred to this in my review, this is peak San Martin. This is what they do very well. Rolex and Tudor homages. And now they've moved away from homage watches. They've gone in. Lau Jiaming, the owner of San Martin, has moved the brand into the direction of creating original designs, and he's moving the brand away from producing homages to Rolex and Tudor pieces. But this is what San Martin did very well, and this piece really is peak San Martin. It's one of the very best Sea Dweller 4000 homages. And I really think they should have stuck to that. Now, I appreciate why Lau Jiaming is doing this, because Lau Jiaming has copied the observed proven business model of Gunther Steinhardt. Gunther Steinhardt originally founded Steinhardt with his partner, and they produced Steinhardt watches under two brand names, De Borfa and also Steinhardt. De Borfa watches were sold in America, and Steinhardt watches were sold in Europe respectively. Now, the reason why they operated two different brand names, which were producing the same watches, De Borfa and Steinhardt respectively, was there was a problem with trademark infringement in America due to Steinhardt sounding similar to another brand. And so in order to avoid legal action, Steinhardt decided to sell the Steinhardt Ocean 1 in America under De Borfa, and his business partner then parted with Gunther Steinhardt and carried on with De Borfa, and Gunther Steinhardt carried on with Steinhardt respectively. So that's the reason why. But the point is, Gunther Steinhardt originally applied a now well-proven business model. He produced Rolex and Tudor homages, and the Ocean 1 has always been Steinhardt's best-selling watch, which is an homage to the Submariner date. And what he did was that gave the Steinhardt brand a steady, regular business stream, and it meant that capital wasn't tied up in stock and materials and production costs. He always had a constant revenue stream from the sale of Ocean 139s and Ocean 142s, and then he had this capital, this lump of cash he could use to produce more risky original designs, because, for example, for every one original Steinhardt design they will sell 10 Ocean 139s. So therefore it's more profitable to produce Rolex homages than it is to produce original designs, and that's why the majority of Steinhardt watches are Rolex and Tudor homages rather than original designs by Gunther Steinhardt. But there's enough revenue coming from the steady stream from sales of Ocean 139s and 42s to give capital for Gunther Steinhardt to produce risky original designs which sell in lower volume. Lau Jiaming observed this, and he's now applied that business model, which is well proven, of Steinhardt to San Martin. So originally San Martin got the capital from the sales of massive volumes of SN017Gs, for example, which are Submariner date homages, and SN004Gs, which are Black Bay 58 homages. They are two of the best-selling San Martin watches, and they constantly give a steady revenue stream to San Martin, and therefore Lau Jiaming has the capital needed to produce more risky original designs which sell in lower volumes. And so he consistently sells high volumes of Submariner date homages and also Black Bay 58 homages, but now is moving the brand away from producing Rolex and Tudor homage pieces and more original designs which are selling in lower volumes. So that's the reason. It's the same proven business model as Steinhardt used, Gunther Steinhardt used with the Ocean 139 and 42 respectively. But as I've detailed, this is peak San Martin. This SN0111GA is better in terms of quality, finishing, build quality, quality control and refinement than the very best of San Martin, the SN017G. And as I detailed in my review, they've refined the case finishing. There's no sharp undercuts to the flanks that one often gets with an SN017G, and it doesn't have the characteristic sharp edges to the top edge and the low edge of the flanks one often gets with the SN017G and a plethora of other San Martin watches. They're known for having very crisp or sharp edges to the flanks to their bracelets and also the undercuts to the flanks of their cases. This does not have it, it's refined. And as I've detailed, if I had to choose one word to describe this watch, it would be refinement. So all of these elements added together, these were the reasons why when I took it out of the watch box and put it on my wrist for the first time, I immediately felt connected to it because I could feel. It didn't have the sharp edge on the undercuts to the flanks of the case. It didn't have the sharp edges to the top edge and the low edge of the bracelet. So this wasn't an SN017G with sharp, crisp edges. It was refined. It was peak San Martin. And then, of course, I appreciated the double dome sapphire crystal being low profile. So I decided to add it to my personal collection, and that really is the highest compliment I can pay a watch. Now, I want to explain something. There is a difference between being a watch reviewer and being a regular watch collector. But for example, often watch collectors will watch my videos, my State of the Collection reviews, and they'll wonder, why don't I have a large collection of 10 or 20 plus watches? Because every week I receive gifted watches from brands. Now, in the last 5 years since starting my channel, I have reviewed over 500 watches, a massive body of work. Every week I receive gifted watches from brands, so that is beneficial. I don't have to buy watches, I receive gifted watches for free. Now, I'll explain how it works. In some cases, brands will gift me a watch, and in some cases brands will loan me a watch and they will pay a review fee. And in some cases brands will very generously gift me a watch and also pay me a review fee, which is very lucrative. And the truth is, that's the real motivation for why I have reviewed so many watches. It makes me a lot of money. I've reviewed over 500 watches in the last 5 years since starting my channel in 2020, and it's generated a massive amount of revenue. So, to clarify, I make no secret of the fact my content on the WR4K channel includes paid promotion, and as per the terms and conditions of the YouTube partnership program, I have to declare legally as a requirement my content includes paid promotion. So at the start of every single one of my videos, a message pops up in the top left of the screen which states includes paid promotion, and that is making you, the viewer or collector, absolutely aware that my content includes paid promotion. And what that really means is either the brand has gifted me the watch as payment for my review, or they've loaned me the watch and they've paid me a review fee, or alternatively they have gifted the watch and paid me a review fee. So what you're watching in reality is a paid advertisement for the brand, because it's very cost-effective digital marketing for a watch brand, regardless of whether it's a low-tier, mid-tier or high-tier brand. What happens is they gift the watch to the reviewer produces the digital marketing, and then the digital marketing has great reach because you, the viewer, the target customer within the brand's market, then watch the review and then you're motivated to purchase the piece. The digital marketing makes you buy the watch. And it's the most cost-effective marketing for watch brands. They gift the watch to the reviewer gives a positive review, that increases sales, and therefore for the price of a gifted watch, the brand receives digital marketing on the watch channel. Now with larger brands, they don't just gift the watch, they also pay the reviewer a review fee, and of course some brands can't afford to do that. For example, micro brands cannot afford to gift pieces to watch reviewers, so what they do is they loan the watch to the reviewer. One watch will go on a tour to a plethora of watch channels, but with the larger channels they pay a review fee, because obviously the larger watch reviewer isn't going to produce the digital marketing content for free. They expect some kind of payment, either a gifted watch or alternatively a payment. So with the larger brands, they gift me the watch and they pay me a review fee. With micro brands, they either gift me the watch or they pay me a review fee. And of course with low tier AliExpress brands, they pay me because the watches they are gifting are low value when I sell them. So to clarify, the WR4K channel has 3 core revenue streams. Google AdSense revenue. Every time you watch an ad in my videos, and I have over 500 watch reviews, so a lot of ads being watched 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. On the 21st or the 22nd of the month, I receive a payment from Google, which is for the AdSense revenue. Every time you watch an ad, I get paid AdSense revenue. I also receive brand payments, so brands will pay me a fee, which I'm not going to disclose because it depends on the brand, and also it's something I keep private between the brand and myself, which is standard industry practice within the watch industry. Watch reviewers never disclose the amount they are paid by brands. That's private, to be negotiated between the watch reviewer and the brand respectively. Also receive a revenue stream from sales of watches. You'll be familiar with my channel's community page. When I have a gifted watch that I don't want to keep as part of my personal collection, I sell the watch, and I will always sell the watch at significantly less than its retail price, or if you're in America, retail is called MSRP. So it's beneficial for the collectors or viewers to my channel to purchase a watch from me because they're buying the watch brand new, just using the review, and of course at a much lower MSRP or retail price than its retail selling price on the brand's website. So that's what I do to clear the stock of gifted watches that I don't want. And in the last 5 years, I have sold over 300 watches. And so you can see it's lucrative. Now, I want to explain something else. This is the reason why you will often see positive reviews on YouTube, because in reality, what you're looking at isn't a watch review, which is unbiased and impartial and credible. What you're looking at is a paid advertisement, as per the name suggests, includes paid promotion. Because what they do is the brand gifts the watch, or they pay for the review. And what they're expecting is a positive review. So, for example, they don't want the watch reviewer to discuss quality control defects or issues, and they want a wholly positive review because that will make you want to buy the watch. If, for example, the watch reviewer details quality control defects such as sloppy bracelets, play in the end links, or, for example, play in the clasp, which I always detail, that isn't going to make you want to buy the watch. And the purpose of the includes paid promotion, the watch ad you're watching, is to make you want to go and buy the watch. So, of course, what the watch reviewer does is they give a fake positive review, and that makes you buy the watch, and then you're disappointed when you discover that the watch has QC defects which weren't detailed in the watch review. The reason why watch reviewers often give fake positive reviews is because it keeps the revenue stream going. So, for example, if you keep giving fake positive reviews, what happens is brands will keep gifting you watches and they'll keep paying you review fees, which is very lucrative. Now, obviously, if you do what I do and you give a negative review, then what happens is sometimes a brand will cut you off. So, for example, I gave 2 negative reviews of Watch Dives watches and the brand cut me off. They refused to supply me with any more watches because obviously my negative reviews were not helping them sell more watches. What they want is a shill, somebody who will be a paid shill, give a fake positive review of their watches without discussing or detailing the QC defects. And then what happens is that paid advertisement for the watch by the shill then makes you go and buy the watch. And then you're disappointed because you find out it has QC defects. For example, you'll find out that the bracelet has sharp edges or the case has sharp edges, and the watch reviewer or the paid shill did not tell you about that, but you've now paid for the watch and you've now got a watch which doesn't give feel good factor or comfort level. But the brand sold the watch, they got paid, and of course the reviewer received a gifted watch which they then sold and they got paid. So that's the reality of it. Really, the majority of watch reviews are just paid advertisements, and it's very lucrative because the larger a channel is, the larger the payments are from brands, and of course you get more gifted watches, higher value watches from micro brands, and they sell for more, and therefore you generate more revenue. Now, last I'll explain something else. I have another revenue stream, and I believe I'm the only or the first watch review channel to have this revenue stream. This year, I licensed the entire back catalogue of WR4K's content to a tech company in America for AI machine learning. So what that means is artificial intelligence is now currently using my over 500 watch reviews for machine learning. Artificial intelligence is watching my content and they are copying it and they're using it to generate AI content on watch reviews. Now, I receive a license fee which is paid every month from the tech company, and the reason why I've licensed it, or the reason why the tech company purchases the license for my content, the back catalogue, is because previously some tech companies were using AI machine learning on content from YouTube, but then what happened was when the content creator who owns the copyright for the content, when they discover this, they then take legal action against the tech company because they say, you're using my content for AI machine learning, my content is copyrighted, therefore you're infringing my copyright, you haven't paid me a licensing fee, I want to be paid for it. And that actually legally prevents the AI machine learning tech company from using the content for machine learning. So to cover themselves legally, to prevent legal action being taken by the copyright holder, the content creator, they need to purchase the license for the content. So what I did was I licensed my entire back catalogue, which is a massive body of work. It's over 500 watch reviews, to a tech company in America for machine learning. And they pay me a monthly licensing fee. And it depends on the amounts they use my content. But what's happening at the moment is AI machine learning is taking place on my 500 watches I've reviewed, and then I receive a monthly licensing fee for that, depending on how much of the content has been used. But it's being used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year under license, and I own both the license and I also own the copyright. So, lucrative. So, I actually have 4 revenue streams, as I've detailed. Google AdSense revenue, which is paid every month from Google for ads watched on my content, brand payments for doing reviews, sales of gifted watches, which I'm gifted by brands, and AI machine learning licensing. So WR4K has now grown to over 11 million views in the last 5 years, including the 20-month break I took. And that's the real motivation for me doing so many reviews, why I have over 500 watches reviewed. I am interested in watches, but this is the real reason why I do not have a collection of 10 or 20 pieces, because effectively my channel is a fluid collection which changes on a weekly basis, because every single week I receive gifted watches from brands, and therefore I don't need to buy watches, and I have zero interest in building up a collection of 10 or 20 pieces, because every week I receive a new watch to try out. And I've experienced everything from a €15 Casio F91W to a €24,000 Rolex Sky Dweller respectively in the last 5 years, from low tier to mid tier to high tier pieces. So lastly, I'll do a lume test of both these pieces side to side, because you might be interested to see the performance of BGW9 Superluminova used by San Martin versus Rolex Superluminova. So my Submariner Date 16610 from 2010 is now 15 years old, and it predates the use of Rolex Chromolite, which glows blue like BGW9 Superluminova. There's no discernible difference between BGW9 and Chromolites used on Rolex Submariner Dates currently, but previously they used tritium. Tritium was then succeeded by Luminova, and then Luminova was succeeded by Superluminova. So my piece, the 16610 from 2010, uses Superluminova. So I'm going to charge up both using my 100 UV LED torch to their absolute maximum, and you can see them side by side. Right, so they're now fully charged, and you can clearly see the difference. So on the left we have BGW9 Superluminova, and on the right we have Superluminova, which is green, rather like C3 Superluminova. And this is the thing I really like about the 16610. The Superluminova glows green rather than the blue tone of Chromolite, which Rolex currently use. Chromolite looks exactly the same as BGW9. So you can see there's no real difference in performance. The BGW9 Superluminova on the left is clearly 5 to 6 layers on the applied indices and the Mercedes handset. And the green Superluminova, which looks like C3 on the right, also is 5 to 6 layers. Now bear in mind, the Superluminova on the right is 15 years old. The performance is still good, and even though it's 15 years old, the watch on the left is brand new. It's 2025. But just bear with me, I'll charge them up again because the camera's struggling to autofocus on them. So as you can see, this is the benefit of San Martin watches. They don't use the cost-cutting measure that so many low-tier Chinese brands use of using 3 to 4 layers or 2 to 3 layers of BGW9 or C3. They're using 5 to 6 layers, which is the industry standard for good reason. The exciter is very potent. It's glowing incredibly brightly on all their watches, and this SN0111GA really is peak San Martin. It's the very best of BGW9 Superluminova. It's equal in quality to other pieces such as the SN017G and the SN004G, which are two of their very best pieces. Right, so we're now fully charged again. And as you can see, apart from the tone, we've got blue tone BGW9 on the left, and then on the right we've got green superluminova, which is like C3. The only discernible difference really is on the left, the proportion of the indices are like the Rolex maxi dial layout. So on current Rolex pieces, they use the maxi dial indices on the Submariner dates. So the indices are larger. On the 16610, the hands were smaller proportioned, and also the indices, rather than the maxi dial layout. But you can see the symmetry is both the same, and also the performance is the same. The Mercedes handset on the St. Martin are larger, and the indices are larger as per the Rolex maxi dial. Lume pips are similar. The lume pip on the ceramic bezel insert is larger than the aluminium bezel insert used on the Submariner date. But in terms of performance, similar performance, 5 to 6 layers. The exciter is potent in both, and this is the performance one expects with superluminova. But bear in mind, on the right we're looking at superluminova, which is 15 years old, and it's still got stellar performance. So good. Now, aesthetically, I prefer the green tone of C3 to the blue tone of BGW9, and I actually prefer the superluminova green used on my Submariner dates versus the blue tone of chrome lights used. And I think that Rolex made a mistake. When they updated from using superluminova to chrome lights, they changed from green to blue tone, but I think the green looks more aesthetically pleasing for the simple reason it looks more like tritium, which was used in the 1960s before it was succeeded in the 1980s and the 1990s with luminova, and then later in the early 2000s superluminova. I just prefer the green tone, but this is subjective. Some collectors like the blue tone of BGW9. So similar pieces. This one looks more like the Rolex Super Case or Maxi Case used on the 116610LN, a piece which I've previously owned. Alternatively, it looks very similar to the Rolex Sea Dweller 4000, which it is an homage to. Thicker lugs. I prefer the more slender lugs of the 16610, but aesthetically, I prefer the aluminium bezel inserts used on the 16610. But you can see, I clearly have a preference for black dial dive pieces. I am still looking for a blue dial daily wear piece, but I cannot find something which satisfies my two key elements, which are feel good factor and comfort level. I'd like a 39mm glossy navy blue enamel dial, and I would like an oyster style bracelet, and also I would like it to have a flat sapphire crystal or a low profile double dome sapphire crystal. The problem is, like the Trasker Commuter 38, I really like that piece, but however, I dislike the box top hat crystal because it added thickness to the piece. It would have been so much better had they used a flat sapphire crystal or a low profile double dome sapphire crystal. Because if you look at the profiling, both these pieces look very thin. Nice low profile double dome sapphire crystal. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. And it's something I really like about it. Same applies to my 16610. It's a very low profile piece. Nice flat low profile to the flat sapphire crystal. So low profile is important to me because of comfort level and feel good factor. Now, last I'll explain something. Over the years, I've received comments from viewers saying, why are you wearing white gloves? You don't need to wear white gloves when handling an inexpensive piece. Because, for example, I appreciate it looks pretentious wearing white gloves when handling a low tier AliExpress watch which is made in China, for example, below €100. And in all of my reviews, I wear white gloves, everything from reviewing a €15 Casio F91W to reviewing a €24,000 Rolex Sky Dweller inclusive. The reason why I wear white gloves in all my reviews, it serves two purposes. The first one is it helps the camera to autofocus, because the problem is when you're handling a watch which is very shiny and reflective, the sapphire crystal is shiny like a mirror, the ceramic bezel insert, and also mirror polished surfaces can also be highly reflective. So the camera struggles to autofocus. But by having matte white gloves which are textured, when you hold the gloves behind the watch when handling it, it helps the camera to autofocus. The other purpose is wearing gloves prevents fingerprints and smudges on the polished and brushed satin finish surfaces to the case. So for example, when you're handling a piece in a review, if you're not wearing gloves, you get fingerprints and smudges all over the brushed satin finish and the polished surfaces of the piece. And when you're reviewing a watch in 4K, it's very high definition and you see all the fingerprints and smudges. So gloves prevent smudges and fingerprints when handling the watch. That's one purpose. The other purpose is autofocus. Now, I appreciate it looks pretentious when you're handling a low tier piece below €100 to be handling the watch as if you're handling some precious, vintage, high value watch which is going to be auctioned at an auction house. You're just handling a low-tier Chinese-made AliExpress watch which is below €100. It does look pretentious wearing white gloves. You're not handling a vintage, precious piece. But, however, that's the reason for it. But over the years, I've often received comments, why are you wearing gloves? And I appreciate it looks pretentious, but that's the reason. So I hope you've liked my discussion of my April 2025 State of the Collection. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.